Hello, hello, hello! Welcome back to Two Nates on Sports. My name is Nathan Quant. With me, as always, is my co-host Nathan Simmons. We talked to our MLB expert Evan Tenenbaum this past weekend about the World Baseball Classic, MLB news, as well as his experiences down at spring training in Florida, which we wanted to give you guys in a special bonus baseball episode. Here's that conversation now.
All right, so let's move on to some other MLB stuff. The World Baseball Classic is currently going on. A lot of fun stuff, but a couple of different news stories that kind of came out of some of the teams in the World Baseball Classic. We'll start with the Mexico team. They were eliminated from the first round. They were in Group D with Puerto Rico and Venezuela and Italy. They had a three-way tiebreaker between them and Venezuela and in Italy for the second spot in that group. Basically, the WBC Technical Committee determined a tiebreaker, before the World Baseball Classic, as the runs allowed per defensive inning. And since there were three teams that were tied at 1 and 2 for that pool, you have to go to runs allowed per defensive inning, and that really just determines on how well you scored against the teams that you played. Italy had the lowest, and Venezuela had the second lowest. Therefore, they got to move on to a tiebreaker game to determine who would move on, and Mexico did not. And you look at their runs allowed per defensive inning, it was 0.01 less than Venezuela's. So that's an incredibly small margin. According to they were playing the third game in that pool, knowing that they had to win to force a tiebreaker, essentially. They were told that they were only needing like 2 runs, like a 2-run win in order to get into the tiebreaker, which they did. But the numbers were ran wrong, and again, their runs allowed per defensive inning was not enough to move into that tiebreaker. So I guess according to the rules, they were eliminated. The one of the members of the team, Adrian Gonzalez, LA Dodger player, had
former Ranger, former Red Sox,
yeah, old dude. He had some harsh words for the organizers. He went by saying that they're trying to become the World Cup, but they're not even close to being the Little League World Series. I guess mad at their deficiencies and trying to determine tiebreakers and things like that.
Pretty solid burn too.
Yeah. So basically he didn't take the elimination via tiebreaker that well. So what do you think about this whole tiebreaker scenario and having such a player like Adrian Gonzalez, who by the way had actually a really poor showing at the World Baseball Classic in these kinds of situations, and getting mad at the World Baseball Classic?
I side with Adrian on this pretty much entirely. If it's coming down to like 0.001 for your tiebreak, then I think that's just like it's far too. You're pretty much splitting hairs at this point, and you have pretty much 2 similar teams. And I'd much rather and I understand like the whole like schedule and logistics might be thrown off, but if everything is pretty much similar between the 2 teams, like they've scored the same amount of runs, they've given up the same amount of runs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like if everything is like very similar, then I'd much rather just see them just play out a game if the schedule allows it. Now, I mean, obviously at the same time, I don't know if the WBC added that tiebreak stipulation just due to the fact that they were just like crunched for time. Like they anticipated that we were going to be crunched for time, so they can't keep doing a bunch of play-in games. So I could maybe if that was their reasoning, then I could kind of understand it. But even then, that like you're still at the end of the day like trying to find out who the best baseball team is, and I don't know how like. I mean, from the way that you described it, and I'm like looking at like the article right now, and I don't understand how they got to this tiebreak at all. And just like it just doesn't really make a lot of sense. And I mean even though like Adrian had a bad tournament, I think he still was part of the team that got eliminated. So it's not like he's not allowed to have an opinion on that, and he's not allowed to voice it. Maybe be a little less strong in his wording, just be like them's the breaks, but I think this is silly. But I mean that's just my opinion, and obviously it's just my 2 cents.
All right, so here's what I think. I think I kind of side with him and I don't side with him. On the one hand, I don't think having that kind of a tiebreaker is good, especially in baseball. It's equivalent to like aggregate scoring in soccer, which I never understand, because like you could like say you're in a 3-game match or something like that, you can lose 2 of your matches and then go in your third match and score 6 or 7 goals and end up winning, even though you only won one of the 3 matches. I never understand that. And it's kind of similar to this, based on how many runs scored or how many runs that you allow within the first 2 games of your pool. It changes your mindset and how you would play that third game. And that's what Adrian Gonzalez was saying, that we know we only need this amount of runs to score in this game. We need this differential to score in this game. Therefore, we would play it like that. On the other hand, I do want to cut some slack to the World Baseball Classic. Obviously, they're trying to be something more than they really are right now. It's supposed to be a bringing together of all these nations and cultures that enjoy the game of baseball. It's not supposed to be that serious of a thing. It's not the World Cup yet. I think he needs to cut it a little bit slack at this point. This is still a fairly new tournament setup. Obviously, it needs some room to be tweaked, but I think you need to cut a little bit of slack and not take it as seriously as I think you're taking it. Also, you need to be playing better if you're really that much worried about being eliminated via tiebreaker. Just, I guess, keep your mind focused on the first 2 games. I don't know. And then the other thing, even if you have to play to, let's say, a 2-run differential or 3-run differential, knowing whatever, the game of baseball is designed so you need to score as many runs as possible. There's no such thing as a mercy rule, except obviously in the World Baseball Classic, where if you're winning by 10 runs or more, the game will end early.
Doesn't also Little League institute that rule as well?
Yeah, but that's in the major leagues and in professional baseball, there's no mercy rule. You ever heard of the 30-3 game that the Rangers tacked on in the Orioles? There was no mercy rule in that game.
I may vaguely remember that.
Yeah, basically, you're going into that game designed to score as many runs as you can against the other team. I think you need to have that mindset, even if you know that you only need, like, say, 2 runs to break a tiebreaker. So yeah, those are my thoughts on that. Maybe agreeable or disagreeable, but I thought he was a little hot-headed to come out and say this. I mean, it sucks to be eliminated that way, but still, play better.
I think there were some other things that happened at the World Baseball Classic too.
Yep, pertaining to everybody's favorite second baseman, Rougned Odor. So this as a way to fan the flames of the Astros-Rangers rivalry. Rougned Odor had a rally in the 9th inning against their game in Italy, in their Pool D, in order to get them in. That was the play-in game for the second round. So they ended up winning 3-2, and they had this rally in the 9th inning that was basically jump-started by a Rougned Odor long single. So basically he hit it out and flipped his bat, because that's what you do, and it almost was a home run. It was basically, it almost cleared the wall, but it hit the very top of the wall. And essentially he didn't run that hard out of the box because he thought it was a home run. And so he probably could have cost his team. Obviously, he didn't, because they ended up scoring and winning. But Alex Bregman, the Houston Astros third baseman, did not take too kindly to, I guess, Odor's hole at bat, tweeting out that Odor should act like he's done it before, #Shaking_my_head. And then 20 minutes later, that tweet was deleted. So I don't know how I feel about this, that Bregman calling out Odor kind of thing. I don't know how I feel about this. Let me get your opinion on this whole situation.
My take on it is just sort of like, I kind of take the same stand. I mean, obviously the most famous bat flip happened against the Rangers back in the playoffs in 2015. And my point of view is just like, at the end of the day, he's not doing anything particularly to anyone. I mean, granted, would I have rather seen him run out the box instead of pimp his own home run? Yeah. But at the same time, it's not the end of the world. And to me, at least, coming from someone like Bregman, who just made it to the major leagues, like, it seems a bit like getting on your high horse than necessarily him doling out any sort of like earned opinion. No offense to him. I mean, it's just like, I mean, if it was someone who'd played the game for a while, then I could understand it. But he's not even that. So, I mean, I don't know why he feels like he needs to be telling Riggy how to act.
I totally 100% agree with that. Now, I will play a little bit of devil's advocate here. Rougned Odor has painted himself as, you could say, a firecracker villain in the Major League Baseball. He's put a target on his back ever since he punched Jose Bautista in the face. So basically anything that he does that someone can take, I guess, offense to, doesn't look good for him. For instance, on that play, him flipping the bat, I don't think flipping a bat's that big of a deal. I think a lot of people misinterpret why Rangers fans were mad at that. It was a combination of factors of choke jobs and Jose Bautista's character. And I think a lot of people also misinterpret why that brawl started last year was because of the dirty slides, more so than the bat flip. So, and again, my personal opinion is bat flips are all right, I guess. I don't know. It's kind of a up and down situation. It just really depends. And, obviously I look back on that Bautista bat flip. It's pretty glorious. And, I'd probably enjoy it much better if it wasn't against the Rangers. So I don't have the issue with Rugi's bat flip in this situation, especially this was a play-in game for his home country. So he was probably really fired up thinking it was a home run. And again, you mentioned this earlier. I do have a problem with Rugi not running it out. He's had that problem a bunch over the last year or so with the Rangers. And in this situation, I know you're excited and all, but you need to be playing baseball. You need to run those out. You could have at least been on second, rounding third, putting yourself in your team in a better position than they could have been, or you could have been thrown out or something like that. And like I said, it's a combination of factors of he's kind of a firecracker now, and he's put a target on his back, and any misstep, people are going to call him out on it. But in this situation, I don't think Bregman should have said something. If we would have something more on our hands if it was one of the other veterans on the Astros.
For sure, definitely.
If it does anything, like I said, it fires up this Astros-Rangers rivalry. They already hate Odor for, taking his time in the box in that 2015 game, and then bat flipping a triple, which it was probably one of my favorite bat flips, to be honest. I know we've been talking about our bat flips are caring or not, but Odor kind of does fire up the blood in the Astros-Rangers rivalry, and it will be interesting to see what happens during the regular season.
For sure, definitely.
All right, so some other baseball news that kind of happened this week. Ian Desmond has a hand fracture now. He had surgery on Wednesday, and so he won't resume baseball activities for a little bit. He'll probably return to the Rockies in late April. That's just a whole mess going on in Colorado right now, signing too many free agent outfielders, putting Ian Desmond, who was originally a shortstop, then he was an outfielder at first base, and now they don't have a first baseman because he has a broken hand. It's a little bit ridiculous on their side. Also, the New York Yankees threw a combined no-hitter against the Tigers on Friday. Obviously, this is spring training and it doesn't mean anything, but it's still kind of a cool situation that kind of happened. It was thrown by Masahiro Tanaka, Chasen Shreve, and Jordan Montgomery. Obviously, those last two guys don't mean anything to anybody, but Masahiro Tanaka's had a really good spring, and he's in a contract year too, so look out for him to get a little bit of a payday, him and Darvish, this offseason. And then the last thing I wanted to bring up regarding the Major League Baseball was there was a investigation that came out, I guess the conclusion of the Jose Fernandez incident. I guess forensics concluded that he was personally responsible for the crash, that he was at the driver's console when the crash happened. And so the only reason I want to bring that up is because we've been talking a lot on this podcast about drinking and driving and drug situations and players doing things on their off days. And I'm kind of disturbed by how often this is really happening. We talked about, I guess, the Dominican culture, that they don't really have that many laws about DUIs and drinking and things like that. But these aren't isolated incidents anymore. This is the fourth or fifth thing has happened in this year alone. Obviously, the Oscar Taveras thing 2 years ago. So
Yordano Ventura, most recent.
Yeah, all of them. Like it's insane how much is happening. And the special case in the Jose Fernandez thing is this was occurring during the middle of a playoff race. The Marlins manager had actually scheduled Jose Fernandez to pitch the next day originally, but because they were still technically in a wild card chase, so they wanted to move Jose Fernandez's spot in the rotation to a later date that week. So basically, that gave Jose Fernandez the okay to, I guess, go out in Miami Beach that night. So you got to wonder what might have happened had he, I guess, had better personal responsibility, or had his rotation spot not been moved. But again, it's the whole personal responsibility thing. You got to know what you're doing, and we have a couple of different isolated incidents again with drinking and driving, and obviously the whole Matt Bush incident a few years ago, and he served jail time for that. But it's just a culture that just I don't understand. Is it just a matter of getting paid and doing what you want to do, or not knowing any better?
I mean, that definitely brings up a lot of interesting questions in terms of just I guess from a sociological standpoint. I mean, obviously, I didn't study that in college or high school too intently. I think it has maybe less to do with the national culture itself, but as much as just the type of, maybe it's sort of the mindset of the athlete in general, in terms of just you have, I mean, you spend so much time training your body for something like this, and you sacrifice a lot of kind of your free time in order to achieve this dream. And if you make it, you get. And so you have that, and then you have the combination of both that and just him just being so young, as young as he was. Like, I think he was like 23, 24 at the.
He's younger than all of us.
Yeah, no, exactly. So I mean, not to say like I did anything as crazy as he did when I was young. I'm still young, but I mean when I was his age. But I mean, like when you're that young and when alcohol's involved, like you tend to have very poor judgment in general, and you have this sort of like immortality complex to some extent. And so I think that played a role in it. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's just really sad.
It really is. We'll not delve too much into it. It's a sad story, obviously, but obviously, if Jose Fernandez was actually responsible for the crash, then I guess the family of the other two passengers might find issue with that legally. So,
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, that's not really baseball related, but again, Jose Fernandez was, a really good young pitcher. His life was cut too short because of dumb decisions that he made.
Yeah, and now his daughter, who was just born, but like his wife was pregnant at the time, or girlfriend was pregnant at the time. Now she doesn't have a father.
Yeah, sad. Okay, on a much lighter note, I'm on this week's podcast to talk about my experience at spring training itself. I was in Florida this past week, taking in the sights and the sounds, and it was actually really cold in Florida, so I'm missing that sunshine that was supposed to come with it. So I went to a couple spring training games in Florida in the Grapefruit League. I want to kind of share my experience with y'all. Anyway, so I went to two different games, one on Monday and one on Wednesday. One, the Pirates against the Braves. The Braves play at a complex called the ESPN Wide World of Sports. It's located within Disney World, just outside of Orlando. It's really just kind of a whole celebration of Disney, and it's kind of got that culture, and it's a really like a family-oriented experience there at the Lake Buena Vista area. But they still have time to put on their Braves and the tomahawk chops and things like that. My dad grew up in Atlanta as a kid, so he was riding the Braves the entire game. I kind of sat in as a neutral party, and it's kind of an interesting, well, at least this matchup, because you have both the Pirates, who are kind of a fading away team, trying to hold on to whatever window that they got, and then the Atlanta Braves, who are going to be basement dwellers for a little bit, but with a bunch of good prospects. So it's kind of two different sides of what you're looking for in spring training. So a couple of highlights from that game. Bartolo Colon was the pitcher for the Braves. He looks old as hell. He was having trouble with his off-speed pitches, especially hitting the strike zone. And that's the thing about old pitchers, that you have to have a good fastball to compensate for your other pitches not doing well. And this fastball was, sitting in the high 80s. So he got shelled pretty early in the game by some of the Pirates players. He even walked in a run when he loaded the bases. So he had a little bit of trouble. The Pirates pitcher was Tyler Glasnow, one of their up-and-coming prospects. He actually might start the year with the team. He had sort of similar troubles with base runners. Emilio Bonifacio got on base and forced him to balk when he was, faking his steal. So Glasnow still has a little kinks, holding runners at first or at second. Braves actually didn't end up coming back from Bartolo Colon's mistakes. They came back, and then it was kind of a back and forth game for the entire thing. Adam Walker had the walk-off triple for the Braves after there was a blown save Braves have John Danks now. Who knows who has John Danks these days? But he ended up blowing the game. But the Braves again end up coming back in the walk-off triple. So that was a really yeah, exactly. It was a really interesting game, and that's kind of the experience you want to see: is prospects doing well or prospects struggling, old guys either having it or not having it, and blowing saves and walk-offs and things like that. And
it's pretty much exactly. It's a lot like the sort of the drama of like minor league itself, you know.
Pretty much. If you know your prospects, you can track them. If you don't know any of the names, at least you can sit there and drink beer. I want to give a little special shout out to Pirates player Joey Turdoslavich. His first plate appearance against Bartolo Colon, he went down 0-2, and then he worked it to a 3-2 count, which is something you want to see in a rookie. Except on ball 3, he thought it was ball 4, so he started taking off his gear and started to walk to the next base. And it took him a little while to realize that he actually didn't get the walk yet, and so the entire stadium was laughing at him and that kind of thing, and he was getting a kangaroo court for that. And then he struck out in the next pitch. So injury to insult. Good for you, Joey Turdoslavich. Remember how to work the count there. Also, I wanted to spend a little shout out to Ron Washington, who is now the third base coach for the Atlanta Braves. Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, well, no, I just a lot of memories with that guy, and I feel bad about how the whole thing ended, but
but he's doing good in Atlanta now. He's
on
an up-and-coming team, and he probably has less of a mess of a situation than he did in Oakland.
Yeah, for sure, and probably a less of a mess in his personal life now. So
most likely. So it was fun to see him at the game. I actually didn't expect him to see him, but welcome surprise. So that was the Braves Pirates on Monday. I did end up going to Tampa on Wednesday to watch the Philadelphia Phillies play the New York Yankees. So a little bit different kind of a game in the Yankees-Phillies. I felt like it was more of a pitcher's duel in this situation. The Yankees had Michael Pineda, and the Phillies had Clay Buchholz, former Boston Red Sox pitcher. It was definitely more of a pitcher's duel. Buchholz kind of struggled a little bit early, but his relievers were actually really solid behind him. Yankees prospect Greg Bird had the first home run. He sounded really good coming off his bat, and he got right out of there on right field, so good for him. And another big notable thing about that game was Pineda had a perfect game through 5 innings, and obviously spring training, so you can't play the entire game. So they got pooled, or Aroldis Chapman pitched the 6th, gave up a walk, because there goes the perfect inning, but didn't give up a hit. And then Chad Green came in the 7th and gave up the hit. So, when you're in those kinds of games, you're always thinking about, is this going to be the time, or is this going to be the time? Pineda looked really good out there, and I wouldn't be surprised if he would end up throwing a no-hitter or something like that during the regular season.
I mean, it's nice. It's nice to see him sort of turn it around too, because I remember the Jesus Montero trade when he was when he went from the Mariners to the Yankees, and it seemed that both would end up being busts. But it's nice to see him turn it around and sort of get back to where he was his rookie year.
Yeah, definitely. I think him and Masahiro Tanaka will be a solid 1-2 punch for the Yankees. And when we do AL East preview stuff, we can talk more about that. So the Yankees did end up winning 3-1. I did catch a couple of the former Rangers prospects that now play on the Phillies. So Nick Williams actually ended up pitch hitting in the game, and he struck out on 3 pitches. So
he just like his other teammate from back in the day.
Yep, pretty much. So those were 2 fun games I saw. As far as the experience goes, if you're at any level a baseball fan, whether you're casual or a diehard, I would definitely suggest going to spring training at some point during your life. This is my 3rd time that I've ever done spring training. This is the 2nd one I've done in Florida, and I've done one in Arizona. It's definitely a different experience. Like I mentioned before, it feels more like a minor league game. Depending on the stadium that you're at, you'll kind of feel a different culture, counterculture, or whatever. Like I said, at Lake Buena Vista, the Braves game, definitely more family oriented, definitely a little bit more relaxed, and definitely more fun and energetic, and trying to bring out the crowd and things like that, and wacky sounds, and less about the baseball itself. And then as a contrast, the Yankee Stadium, which is George Steinbrenner Field in Tampa, which is an absolutely beautiful stadium. It's bigger than some minor league stadiums that I've been in.
It sounds like a Steinbrenner thing through and through.
Yeah, and they play all the Yankees songs. They do the God Bless America. They do and it felt very more serious and regal and elegant, kind of like the Yankees are. I guess the one bad thing about that was I felt like the crowd wasn't as much into it. And I don't know if that's more of like a Yankees transplant kind of thing, or it's just a more formal thing. And rambunctious crowds are often to appear at Disney World. So
that's an interesting thing though, because I mean, like you think that if you're going to like a Yankees baseball game, you'd be like far more like into the baseball itself, and so you would appreciate the sort of like formal atmosphere. But I mean, it sounds like the people sort of like, in order to like interact with people nowadays, like you kind of have to like cater more towards their needs than necessarily like trying to uphold like sort of this golden castle in a sense.
Well, definitely. But the thing is, though, about going to these spring training games, it's not like I'm going to the Yankee Stadium and only expecting Yankees fans, or I'm only going to the Braves Stadium and expecting Braves fans. I found that there was a wide range of all types of baseball fans at both of these games. A little bit more so at the Braves Stadium because Disney World, but you can find anyone in the crowd, and they might not even be a fan of the Braves or the Pirates in this situation. There were a lot of Blue Jays fans at that game, and I needed a safe space. But anyway.
Well, I mean, Canadians also like going to Florida,
That is true. That it is, spring break time, so you'll see a bunch of different fans of different teams. So if you're a fan of a team, but you're not necessarily going to their stadium, you can still wear their jersey and their hat and things like that. There are other people in the crowd that might share your interest. As far as the food goes, it's ballpark food.
Well, yeah,
it's what you want. It's expensive and it can taste alright, I guess. But if you're into that kind of thing, but if you enjoy the baseball experience, you enjoy baseball in general, and you want to just sit there and for a couple hours talk with your friends, drink a beer, it's definitely a worthwhile experience to do.
For sure. Or if you're like a fan of Smash Mouth, you could go to San Antonio to the Alamo Dome.
Yep.
I think they're playing there tonight, right?
They played there last night.
Well, I stand corrected. If you're a fan of Los Lonely Boys, then I believe that's yeah.
All right.
How far is heaven? Okay, yeah.
So that's my spring training report, guys. There was a lot of stuff to talk about, and it was a fun experience. Definitely go when you get the chance some other time. And thanks for having me. It was fun.
No problem. Thank you for coming here and sharing your experiences. Talk to you later. Thanks for stopping by.
Yep.
Our special thanks to Evan Tenenbaum. Remember to visit our website, TwoNatesOnSports.com. Like us on our Facebook page at 2NatesOnSports, and also to subscribe to our YouTube channel, iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play Music to get the latest episodes as soon as we release them. We'll be back with another regular episode this weekend, and we'll talk to you guys then.